Today is a great day to live in your freedom. My name is Leah Minter, and this is the Freedom Church News. Freedom Church services are live streamed via Facebook Live from our Freedom Church Houston page each Sunday at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. Please tune in for a life-changing word. Every Tuesday night, Freedom Church will stream our new weekly series entitled Points of Freedom. On our Facebook page each week, we want you to offer a short inspirational moment to continue to push you toward your place of freedom. You can also play past episodes on our YouTube page. Wednesdays are for Bible study. Freedom Church joins forces with Pastor Marvetta Walker and our sister church, Fresh Wind Christian Fellowship, for weekly Fresh Lens Bible study on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. Visit www.fchouston.org or our social media pages on Facebook and Instagram for ways to call in to this hour of power.
Hey, good evening, my Freedom Nation friends and family. This is Pastor Shon Stewart here in Houston, Texas. I am excited to be coming to you live on this evening. We are in part 2 of our series that we've been sharing with you about trauma and stress and how therapeutic services and mental health and ministry can all be a part of this growing thing that we call life. As you know, we have engaged in the election of 2020. We have a president-elect in place. We have set history with nominating the first female vice president-elect. And I'm excited about her growth and her candidacy to this movement, to the next dimension. And so we have some folk that are joining with us this evening. And all the way from New York, we have the senior pastor of the Restoration Temple Ministries, my friend and my sister, Pastor Rose Hardy, who will be joining us this evening. Also, my boss and co-worker friend, my ride or die, she keeps me on track when I try to get off of it, Dr. LaConia Nelson, right here in Houston, Texas. And our very own at Freedom Church, the Reverend Justin Pitts, will be joining us immediately. There we go. And so I got my family with me this evening. You all do me a favor while you're getting in this room. Click like, click share. Please do a watch party if you want to. You can watch this live on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We're all there. You all tell me what's going on. Dr. Nelson, how you doing? What's going on? How are things going with all of this since the last time we visited with each other?
Doing well. I can't complain at all. Staying busy, of course. You know, I told y'all I was busy just a little bit. I teach at 2 universities and I teach 5 classes. But aside of that, just making more of an effort to check in on people's mental health and making sure that everyone is okay to the best of my ability.
All right, cool beans. Thank you for sharing. Pastor Rose Hardy over there in New York and New Jersey. How are you doing, my sister?
I'm blessed. I'm staying busy. It is never a dull moment in the work of the kingdom, as well as my work in mental health with an outpatient program of an inner city hospital, and taking care of my mama. You know,
that's
so
it.
Life is busy, but I'm trying to make sure I take care of me and all that. Otherwise, it's a discrepancy with what I'm talking about and what I'm doing. So I'm trying to do better in that area.
Good deed, good deed. Glad to hear mom as well, and you're looking good. And the church is coming along well. Are you all back in service?
We took a plunge in October. I decided to go back into the sanctuary on the first and third Sundays, but with only a small remnant of clergy and musicians. We've been live streaming since March, and I wanted to be able to do something that gave a greater semblance for people that are watching the live stream of what the experience would look like. So everyone's masked, we're social distancing, the people that are there, no contact. We're following all the CDC guidelines, but we've been able to have 3 services now in the sanctuary, which I think has added a piece to what we're doing in terms of live stream. And then for the leadership that are there, keeping them involved so that it's not just pastor.
Right.
Preaching on the screen on Sunday, it got them back engaged as well. And my staff that are in training, my ministers in training, deacons in training. So I'm excited because we're meeting people and people joining the church that aren't necessarily local. So we're probably someday when we do get back inside the four walls, we will need to continue to do a live stream because you can't cut people off who became a part of the family while we were in this peculiar season.
Good deed. Good deed. Thank you for sharing. Reverend Pitts, how are you, sir?
Things are pretty good on my end. Yeah, no complaints over here. God is still moving and working miracles, and we're so thankful.
Listen, isn't that the miracle side of it, right?
Right. Yes. Yeah.
The miracle side of it. Things going well since this pre-COVID thing, this voting and all of that. Y'all are adjusting pretty good over there.
Yeah. So far, things are going great on that end. I am from Georgia, so I am so delighted to see that Georgia now has become the center of U.S. politics. But I gotta urge all my people in Georgia. The fight is not over. We're not done. There is still work to be done. So don't give up yet. Keep pushing. Keep going out, knocking on doors, getting people to vote. And yeah, we got some extra work to do, but it's worth it. It will be worth it in the end.
Awesome sauce. Thank you for sharing this evening. So let's get this party started. Let's get this conversation going. I wanted to kind of start off and just to kind of get a feel, just an idea of what your definition of trauma is from each one of you. And so we'll start off with you, Pastor Rose, since you're at the top of my screen. And we'll pivot to Dr. Nelson and then down to Reverend Pitts. But just to get an idea about what is a definition of trauma that you could give us, that maybe help our friends that are watching identify when they see it in themselves and when they see it in others.
Well, I'll speak to how I might define trauma, and then I'll kind of speak to emotional and psychological trauma.
All right.
Trauma itself defined is determined to be an emotional response to some type of terrible event, accident, a natural disaster, sexual assault, and it can have long-term unpredictable emotions attached to it. Emotional and psychological trauma is the result of an extraordinary stressful event that it shatters your sense of security. It shatters it. And that can pretty much make you feel helpless in what you feel is a dangerous world. And it leaves you struggling with emotions, memories, and anxieties that just won't go away.
All right. Thank you. Dr. Nelson, add to that for us.
I think Pastor Rose did a great job of defining the trauma piece. I think I will go more into some of the signs that you will see in trauma, which includes fear. It includes anxiety, withdrawal, nightmares, insomnia, constant feelings of like something is going to happen, or constant feelings of thinking that bad things are going to happen or death is coming around, paranoia, out-of-body experiences. I also think it leads to anxiety, which also leads to depression. It goes into even parts of your body, which is physical parts of the health piece of your body, which is tightness in your chest, which leads to different signs of stress. I'll stop there. And
okay. All right, Reverend Pitts, what you got on that?
Yeah, so basically the same thing. When you think of trauma, some people tend to forget that trauma can be caused by a one-time occurrence of something. It doesn't have to be a lifetime, a whole childhood experience. It really can just be one time. And it could be something like a surgery, a sudden death of somebody. Trauma is really just that part of you that, like Dr. Nelson said, that feels like something is always around the corner, that something could always happen. And it hinders you from your growth and your potential to a point to where you just can't excel, you can't do anything. So that's one end of trauma. Yeah.
Okay. So then when we're looking at this thing called trauma, How Pastor Nelson, I mean Dr. Nelson, identify. I'm working on it. Dr. Nelson, I'm sorry. I'm gonna do better next year. But Dr. Nelson gave some great ideas about the things that we would see. You know, when trauma causes these things. When we see those things, could we see them in ourselves and in other folk also? And if so, how should we address it when we see it?
You know, we are living in unprecedented times. And so the things that we know to be aren't those things anymore. So, you know, when COVID first started, and it started during allergy season. So you didn't know if you had allergies or COVID. Mm-hmm. Now we're in flu season. So you don't know if you have the flu or if you have COVID. I'm smiling because I was called out in my irritability about a month ago, and I was asked, was it that time of the month? And for that answer, the answer was yes. But just being honest, sudden irritability can be signs of trauma. And I think what we need to understand too is trauma causes PTSD.
Okay. All right. Pastor Hardy, I see you nodding. What you got to that? Add to that for me.
Because when you look at trauma, you have to look at the event, you have to look at the experiences, and you have to look at the effect. They call it the 3 E's. Because the reality is, again, as I said earlier, it can have long-term devastating impact. And a person can think they're okay, and they're not okay. Mm-hmm. And other people are seeing the irritability. Other people are seeing depression. They're seeing avoidant behavior. They're just seeing things in you that it might be someone else that is trying to bring it to the individual's attention, because you may not be aware that you have some residual impact from trauma. A lot of times people want to wear the mask, the other wet masks we were wearing before the masks we wear now, that people want you to believe that they're okay. Mm-hmm. And we want to believe that we're okay, when in fact, something may have just been pressed down because we're staying busy or doing whatever it is so that we can think we're healed from some event, some what oftentimes can be horrible events like an assault, and you think you're okay, but you don't realize that you're more jumpy. You don't realize that you're avoiding places and things that in the past were comfortable. Your body is having it's almost like something's been imprinted on your body and you can't get rid of it. And sometimes it's the people around us that pick up on the cues that something's not okay. And hopefully those individuals can influence people to usher them to a place where they can get some support and they not feel some kind of guilt or shame about it, because we put these time frames on healing and how people should be okay. And PTSD really, which we started really learning about that from the Vietnam War, but that PTSD now is used diagnostically across the board. With so many individuals and situations and circumstances.
All right. Reverend Pitts, what do you think?
I think they've summed it up pretty well on that end.
Okay.
The only thing I would add is when we think about trauma in terms of let's say like the LGBT community or the African American, Black and Brown community, trauma, much like a lot of different things, it shows up in a different way. And it shows up in a way that many of us don't know how to identify that. And like Pastor Rose said, we wear these masks, or we've been taught to wear those masks and to hold that in, and that trauma and that stress added on top of each other is really what causes some people, pushes some people to that end. But it's basically because we failed to teach what trauma looks like, and how to express, I need help, because that help word is a curse word in some families. Yeah.
Dr. Nelson?
Now, Reverend Pitts, this is the second time you have hit on the causes. In your first response, You hit on causes, and this is the second time you have hit on causes. And I think, and Pastor Rose said it too, like sometimes you think you're okay and you're not, and you don't even realize that you're, you have a heightened sense of irritability, or even, being home during this COVID time, you don't realize that you've slipped into not really a depression, but you've become complacent, and you just want to stay home all the time, and you don't want to leave, and you don't have a desire to go anywhere or to do anything. And when you leave your house, you have all these fears that, something is going to happen. And I know for me, like every time I leave my house, my prayers have extended more than what I would normally do when I leave my house. And, Lord, don't let this be the last time I see my kids. Please bring me back home safely. Bring me back to them. Please, bring them back to me. But going back to that cause word, I think we have to, when we define, we have to also know the causes of trauma. And so the obvious right now is COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But trauma was here long before COVID.
Listen.
And trauma is not just, as Pastor Rose said, from the war, veterans. Trauma can happen way from early childhood. Trauma can be death. Trauma can be ending a relationship. Trauma can be being bullied. Trauma can be being discriminated against. So anything that has a major effect on your mental and or physical state can cause trauma.
Yeah.
I would even push this a little further, and you all can help me with this. Like for me, I'm with you, Dr. Nelson. Like when I leave home now, my nerves are on 10. Like it's not only just bring me back home, but God, be sure I don't come home with nothing I didn't leave with. Like keep all of it away. It's almost to the point I want to go get holy water, and I'm like for real, and I just want to start because I want to be sure, because a lot of times what I'm seeing now, like for me, I'm a very social person. I like to be around the folk. I love to be around my people. But now I'm almost to the place where I'm scared to let my people come around me because I can't control what they're bringing in, and I'm scared to go around them because I'm concerned about what I could be carrying to them. So it's almost like you're perplexed. Like, do you really go out and see the ones you love, or do you demonstrate your love by staying sequestered from them all?
Mm.
And to me, that is the trauma that we are balancing, because there is no way to balance that evenly. Or am I looking at that wrong? Because even people that are preparing for Thanksgiving, like if you have more, like Thanksgiving, the African American community is always 20 plus. Like it is a winter family reunion. That's what Thanksgiving is. It is a winter family reunion. So now we are having conversations about, well, how do we cut that down and it not seem ugly? Or how do we keep this safe where we don't hurt nobody's feelings, but we keep everybody alive? Like, and then if you were on the phone with me today, you was trying to figure out, well, she cooked this, so we need her to come. But he don't need to come because he
can't cook.
Right. So we love him, but he don't need to be there. But like, how do we get to that? What are your thoughts about that? That's just a trauma for me. Like, this will be the first year outside of the 3 years I was fighting cancer in my 47 years that I've not been with my family for Thanksgiving or Christmas, but I'm not going because I'm concerned about them having to do certain things to be sure I can be present. And then it alters the trajectory of what we're doing only off the fact that we can't change anything. So what are your thoughts about that?
Well, let me share. I think that it's going to be the holidays. So, of course, it's going to be very difficult. However, we've, for months now, already been kind of experimenting with creative ways to still make things happen. Zoom, like, who knew what Zoom was before March? I remember a TV show called Zoom, but now all the commercials, everything, we know what Zoom is. We have to be creative and figure out things. People are doing things in terms of having meals, having teas, doing things. I know that for the African American community, for our beloved communities of colors, this is going to be so difficult. But there's nothing more difficult than having to see someone you love have to go to the hospital. You can't go in, and you don't even look. You know how our people are in the hospital. We gotta know everything that's going on. And so I think it's hard. I think what's really hard is it's going to be the tension of the people in a family that want to be safe and the people that it's going to be fine. And you see that now. You see parties where because people put everything on social media. So you see the parties where there are people without masks and people with masks. You see that with churches, quite honestly. And so I think what happens for me, as excruciating as it's going to be this holiday, pretty much it'll be my mother, me, and my brother, and that's it. And not having others come. And is it hard? Absolutely. But nothing's harder than having to bury someone you love. And we just have to get creative and encourage and try to get people to understand that, it won't always be like this. I'm convinced we just have to endure this peculiar season so that we can get to the other side, and then we will have it again. I believe that.
Okay. Dr. Nelson?
I'm trying not to fixate on two things that Pastor Rose said, so I won't go down a rabbit hole. So I'll start
Go
with
down.
Right.
Just jump in the hole and
Take
keep
us
going.
there.
Let me start with the news first. I was watching the news this morning, or was it GMA, and they were discussing ways that families can get together. And so one of the ways and they were very serious about this, was as of Lord, I don't want to go back. November the 13th will give you 2 weeks until Thanksgiving to quarantine yourself. And they said from November the 13th until Thanksgiving Day, that means no leaving your house, no going to the store, no going to work, no going to the gas station, no going outside, like literally staying in your house. The second option they gave I don't remember the other two, but the second option they gave was having everyone tested before they came. Again, I'm assuming the rapid test, since you get immediate results. And so people are trying to find creative ways to meet. But no, Bishop, I don't think you are off the mark at all. And the things that Pastor Rose said that takes me down the rabbit hole is when we are defining and looking for signs of trauma. Think about all the funerals that have happened this year.
Right.
Think about people who have COVID, who have been in the hospital, all those people who have died alone in hospitals. Their families were not there. And I can't even fathom the thought of not being able to be with my loved one who's in a hospital. I can't fathom the thought of my loved one being alone in the hospital. I can't fathom the thought of having a graveside service, or having a service where only 10 to 12% of people can come into the funeral. I don't know how to do that. And so when you start talking about trauma, this in itself, the worry, the frustration, the people who've lost jobs, not just lives, but who's lost jobs, who've been evicted, who's worrying about their job moving forward, families, parents trying to keep a roof over their children's heads and food in their mouths, the youth, the children of today. It's on the news. We've been talking about it at church. Even within our own families, how our children are falling behind at school. They're failing. In mass numbers, they are falling behind. I can't even understand how people are failing students during this time. So I go back to we're in unprecedented times, and I think now is the discussion of, or needs to happen, what do we do? Because we know what's there, and we see the signs. We see people are all in their feelings. People are getting upset over no reason. People are killing each other now for no reason, because I looked at you wrong or you looked at me wrong. we're living in times where, even though we know we should extend grace, it's hard because people are so under pressure and in their feelings. So the question for me is, in terms of this discussion, what do we do now?
Mm-hmm. It's a good question. Reverend Pitts, what do you have on that? What do we do now?
So let me back up real quick. Thanksgiving. On my father's side, my grandparents, between the two of them, had over 18 children. There is not a such thing as a small Thanksgiving in the Pitts family. So this in itself is a traumatic time. But we're figuring out ways to make that work. Like Pastor Rose said, gotta be creative. The last thing anybody wants to see is someone get sick from this during Thanksgiving. And that, transpires to us having to have a Zoom funeral or something. That's just completely unheard of. But what do we do next? Where do we go from here? We really don't know. And that is the really bad part of it. And that's another traumatic part in itself, is the fact that we just don't know. We don't know what comes next. We hear about vaccines, or we hear about, people having immunity and all that other stuff, but we don't know what happens next. So we have to continue to put these things in place to keep ourselves safe while we're talking about what we need, emotionally, what we need, mentally, what we need physically, keeping those things at the front of our mind so that we don't allow the distance or the us being afraid or any of that to increase our level of trauma that we've already experienced and endured. So we got to be able to be vocal about it. And you'll hear me say this a lot. Be vocal. Talk about your need. Talk about your desire. Talk about what it is that you need from your partner, what you need from your family member, your mom, your dad, whoever it is. Talk about it, because that added stress of keeping that in is really what's going to dig deep and cause, some traumatic issue that you have to deal with in the long run.
I totally agree. And when we look at this conversation, family, to me, Thanksgiving leads us into one of the most festive holiday seasons. Thanksgiving is the start to Christmas and the winter break and actually having the kids home and everybody there. And, it's going to require people to really not just be creative, but to be creative in a way that it does not hurt. Like, I think that's the other thing we've got to get to, that when we become creative, it doesn't hurt. And so let's take a look at, when we talk about being creative, what would be some things that, when we're looking at this, if we were to see it in some of our friends, because I'll go down this avenue. When we see the trauma, how do we not confront our friends, but how do we support them? I think that's a better way to frame it, because I think confronting them straight out will send them back down a hole we might not be able to recover them from. So how should we frame the conversation? How should we approach them in this level of support as friends and family? And we'll start with you, Dr. Nelson.
I knew you were going to start with me.
Well, I will not start with you, Dr. Nelson.
I was actually looking at some of the comments to answer some of those questions, but I'll go back to your question. I think a lot of what Reverend Justin just said is true. And then it's also easier said than done. And so we have the conversations. I think communication is key. I think we have to educate our people, and we have to continue to be understanding and extend grace where needed. I was a part of a group text just the other day, and there was one word that threw the whole conversation off in what someone texted. And I had to be mindful and then also explain to them that we are in times where people are in their feelings. When you are in your feelings, your understanding is not good. And so we have to explain almost like on an elementary level of the why behind either you bringing it back to Thanksgiving, why we can't meet for Thanksgiving, or we have to bring to an elementary level of talking to our loved one of, I noticed that you don't really seem yourself. You seem a little tired. Your voice sounds a little different. Are you okay? And I think in our previous session, we talked about having conversations to extend past, are you okay? Because we have defaulted into saying, I am okay, or I'm well, or I'm good. So we need to go beyond that. And we need to just, the conversations are going to be awkward. Let me just say that they're going to be awkward. They're not going to be nice. You may get something said toward you that that is unkind, and I think you can't take it personal. And so going back to what Reverend Pitts said, in that, you know, we are in a scary time, and the answer is we don't know. We have to, one, especially those of us who are believers, trust, believe, and pray and depend on God, and then ask him for guidance so that we can be the vessels that we need to be for others.
All right. Reverend Pitts, what you got on that one?
Nothing. Yeah. She Dr. Nelson was perfect. She was spot on. Those conversations are going to be very awkward, primarily because a lot of people who ask the question, they don't recognize or realize their own trauma. It's as mental health professionals, we see it all the time. Like, we're easy. I can give you advice all day long, but I'm normally the last one to take my own advice. So we see that, and those conversations are going to be awkward because some of the things that you see in the other person that you're, identifying those things in, you may also see yourself in that person. But I would encourage, family members to just take a minute and when you're doing your Zoom Thanksgiving or whatever it is, let people express what they're thankful for. Start out on that positive note and keep that going. Drive that home so that it still feels, the vibe is still there, the feeling is still there. The presence just may be a little different.
I wanted to bring this in. I don't know if you all see this. Minister in training, Kalita Frey, put a statement out that I think is very good. She stamped and said, it's okay to not be okay. I think that's something we really need to take a look at, because a lot of times, Pastor, you stamped it well. We have been trained to put on these masks. We have been trained to always, especially men. You ask us, I'm all right. No, like you half dead, but you all right, because that's you've been trained to give that exact answer. And so I would like to talk about when we know that someone is not okay, it's okay for you not to be okay. I think it's safe to say it's not okay for you to stay that way. Would you all agree with that? It's not okay to stay that way?
It is not okay to stay that way. And I think what happens is people will say things like, it's okay for me not to be okay, but then what? Because I believe that the responsibility of not just mental health professionals, but family as we get closer to the holidays, and we're there, is that people need to really feel. They need to really feel care and love, concern, and creating a safe space. First of all, I don't know why in the season of COVID, people wait until the holidays to connect. Get off the text messaging. I'm doing duo Zooms with relatives that I don't talk to that much. I am having FaceTime conversations. We need to be doing that weekly, not just waiting to Thanksgiving. We need to be connecting with people. We need to be connecting with people as soon as those people come into our spirit. I've heard from people that I hadn't talked to in years, and I know they just checked in. How are you? Because they want to feel connected. Keep in mind, what are we in a place right now? We're in masks. I don't know about anybody else, but I am working consciously and deliberately to make my eyes be able to express
Yeah.
what I no longer can. My strength is my face.
Mm-hmm.
And I am conscious of, I'm not text messaging people, I'm voice streaming. I'm voice, I'm gonna go on live streams, I'm gonna FaceTime, Duo, and I'm making sure I articulate to people that I care. How are you? And I'm not letting the people close to me, I'm not letting them wear the emotional mask. I'm just not doing it, because I'm letting people know I care and I know you're not okay.
Right.
And if they say to me, "Nah, but I'm going to be okay," I let them know, and I'm here and I want to participate in that. We have to work harder in a season that is unprecedented to let people feel the compassion and the safety net of relationships. And we have to do this because we don't know how long this is going to go on. And we could talk hours, because my heart right now bleeds for healthcare workers. My heart bleeds for what's going on in Texas right now. And just knowing that there are people that are going to be traumatized in their careers who don't even get to go home for the holidays. Hello, somebody. They don't get holidays. They got to work. And we just have to find ways to consistently connect with people right now. Not even wait till Thanksgiving, Black Friday, when I don't go, Christmas. We have to and call upon God and the Holy Spirit to give us everything we need to be strengthened to do this, because it is exhausting.
Yes,
I am exhausted emotionally between my career, trying to keep a church connected during a period of separation. And they hear me say this every Friday at 12 o'clock when I'm talking to my therapist. Don't bother me, because I'm trying to get restored.
And I think you stamped it very well, Pastor. One, we cannot wait. I think the best gift we can ever give anyone isn't our money, but it is our personal time and attention. I really do believe that when you just call randomly and say, "Hey, how you doing?" you would be surprised how you change the countenance of that person's day, their mind, their spirit, like just a random "how you doing?" And yes, texting is good. I'm with you, Pastor Rose. Texting is good, but every now and again, you need to get on the phone, a Google Duo or something, and you need to look a person in their face, because their eyes will never lie. Their mouth will, but their eyes will never lie. And you can look them in their eyes and tell them straight up, you ain't right. And if you're in good connection with someone, your voice will tell as soon as you answer the phone. The way you say hello, if you're real connected, they will read you for trash right there on the spot. Dr. Nelson will read you for trash right there on the spot. And be like, "Where are you? Because you don't sound right." And you need somebody in your world that can call you out like that, and you trust them to do it, to be vulnerable enough to tell them your truth. And I think that's something we got to get to, that it's okay not to be okay. And if you know you're not okay, you should have that one person in your circle that you can go completely fall apart in their arms, in their heart, and know that when you finish, they're going to pick you back up and say, "Come on, let's go." And they might have to walk with you or pull you along or carry you. And that doesn't mean you're weak. It just means you needed that moment of support. And it's okay to be vulnerable. And let me say this to my men: you can cry and you're not weak. You can need therapy and you're not weak. You can be saved, sanctified, Holy Ghost filled, fire baptized, speak in tongue, and still need a therapist, appeal, and prayer all at the same time. And you can read those for the church announcements. Please govern yourself accordingly. Dr. Nelson, what you got on that, my dear?
I was listening. I think you and Pastor Rose hit the nail on the head. I think also, in addition to just having that trusted person, that accountability partner, this is a time where if you are a loner, if you are a person who does not like a lot of people, this is definitely a crucial time to have a circle. And it doesn't have to be a large circle, but I believe you need a circle because everyone needs to be able to have a timeout and to be able to tap out. And we are, we're professionals in the field. And so we can identify that, like we need, when it's on the outside, we can identify what is needed until we get close to the situation. And I know, like, even in my circle, of friends and family and peers and counseling, it is easy to point out what others need to do. But you need to have someone in your circle, like you all just identified, who's able to see you and know you for who you are, who is able to call you out on those things. Right. That person at that time may also be going through something. So then you need somebody else in that circle who's able to encourage you, who's able to say, let's just drink a cup of coffee. Let's just get on Zoom and let's not talk about anything stressful. Let's drink a cup of coffee, a cup of tea. If you like spirited drinks, you can drink that too. Just don't get drunk, because that's what the scriptures say. And if my daddy is watching this, I'll get in trouble because he said, stop drinking. Just trying to help the people out.
Help the people. Why don't you, Dr. Nelson, help the people?
Whatever the case may be, you need a circle of support. You need more than just one person, because y'all, we are in times where if you don't laugh and if you don't cry, you will go crazy. We are in very scary times, and we need a circle of love. We need a circle of support. We need a circle of understanding. We need a circle of grace. And we need a circle that doesn't judge us and just let us be. And that is one of the best ways that you are able to come out of not being okay.
Yes. I like the way Kim Butler phrased it. She says you need a backup for the backup. I like the way that you need a backup for the backup. That's right. You need a backup for the backup. When we look at this thing, even down to, I was having a conversation with some friends of mine that are teachers. And one of the conversations that, as you were speaking, Dr. Nelson, was about how, the students are being left behind. And, I was having this conversation, she's a teacher and a parent. 4 kids in school. Now, I think her oldest is just at 8th grade, so 8th grade down, and she's teaching and working, and her middle child is autistic, so she, you can't really be too far away from him because he needs more hands-on instruction. And she simply said, I just don't know how much longer I can keep this up. There seems to be no relief anywhere I turn. And I heard her exhaustion in multiple formats. I heard the professional saying that she was exhausted from teaching. I heard the parent that says that she's exhausted from moving all of those different pieces. And then I heard the person that says she's exhausted because she doesn't have her connections anymore. What would we say to her to keep her moving? What would be some things that we could point out to her, or some tools we could give her to help her keep going?
I think in a similar situation, I know of a parent who, because they were in that state, sent their child to school because they just could not. So it not that they wanted, their child to be at risk of catching COVID, but it was either that or the parent would lose their mind. I think, and going back to our first session, we have to have our toolkit ready and available. And we need to be able to provide resources, whether it's through her job, reaching out. I don't think a lot of people know about EAP through their jobs. And so for just about all jobs, offer an employee assistance program. And you get so many sessions for free. And so that's a free resource, and that's a start. I think people are in these walls at home. If you are at home working, or even if you go to work, you're still going just from home to work. So you're really still not getting out. You have to remember self-care. We touched on that the last time, but for those who are stressing out and who see no way out, they are not rendering any type of self-care, any type of time out, and you have to do that. That is essential. So even like I previously said in the first session, going to take a bubble bath or going to sit outside in your porch. Sometimes to get away from my kids, I might just go sit in the truck and hide from them because I just need 5 minutes to myself without the child coming in here screaming mama. It might be just taking a walk to the park. Find some of those things, especially for the baby with autism, that they really like, that they can be entertained with for an increment of 10 to 15, maybe 20 minutes. And use that time as if it's the last 10, 15, 20 minutes of your life for self-care. If you have to just close your eyes and meditate, close your eyes and pray, take deep breaths. You have to do something. And when we hear that, have to be able to say to people, and give people answers. It might not be long term, but even short term right now answers is better, because that's a heightened that's a heightened alert, Bishop. When I think of the red light and I think of red, yellow, and green, and that's a mom plea and cry for help. And you don't want to know or even think about what could happen if she just tips off the scale. So that is an immediate
response.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to add a question. Elder Veronica Brown in Carolina, we know as mother, she raised this question. She said that when children, when they experience death, so mom, dad, brother, sister passes on, we can tell them the truth that death happened. And we have been conditioned to move along, death happens, have the funeral, have the repast, all of that kind of stuff. But she says, she's a child advocate. How do we get to the little person that's in their soul screaming at the top of their lungs? How do we support that person? How do we provide encouragement? How do we get in there with them to support them through that? And I'll start with you, Justin. Tell me what you think about that, and then we'll pivot off.
I would say definitely be honest. That it irks my nerves to hear people come up with these fantasies of all this other stuff. What really happened. Tell the child what happened. Be honest. The person passed. Yes. But create a safety net around that child, that he or she will know that, yes, this person, their presence isn't here, but I'm here for you. I can't replace them, but I'm here for you. We're here for you. This village, this circle is here for you. So that little person inside of them is screaming, but they're screaming for love, attention, some piece of normalcy there. So give them that. That's what they're screaming for. Give them that. Create that safety net. Create that world around them that they know that this is another day. We're stepping it out, and we're only taking it one day at a time. Don't, the person passed. Don't shoot past it to the next week. Deal with it that day. Deal with it the next day and the next day. It's going to take time, but create a safety net around that child so that they will know that this is okay, that you're okay. You're going to be okay because we're here for you.
All right. Reverend Rose, what do you think about that?
I love that. It's speaking to creating the village around a child. And I like what Rev said about, because I also believe in telling them the truth. I believe that, I think we've evolved, that we're not creating fantasies anymore and saying things to children, because children are very sophisticated today. As long as they have the village around them, it'll help them, that screaming child. I also believe that, I believe with adults and with children, that the loved one lives in us. And I think people need to speak memories. I think that children should be encouraged to talk about, grandpa or Uncle Sam. I think that they should be encouraged, just like I think adults should be encouraged to keep that person alive aloud. Because what happens is, I think children will do one of two things: the acting out behavior versus going into the sunken place. And to me, that's even more dangerous. At least a child that's being expressive, you see what's going on. A child who withdraws, like adults do, you're not really sure what's going on. And it's always toxic to keep in grief. So anything to encourage, and a child seeing that They are not abandoned. They are not alone. In fact, when I do intake assessments on adults, when I do the trauma assessment, one of the questions is, have they had the death of a parent? The death of a parent or caregiver is considered a trauma. So that's one of the things that we check off. So it's important that, again, getting emotions out and the village to be there, not to take the person's place, but to still protect them, to still care for them, to still provide for needs, and a place where they can vent without consequence.
Yes. Dr. Nelson?
A few things actually. I want to touch on one of the conversations that's in a chat that I think is very important. Someone said that, you know, not all loners know how to reach out to people, and they don't know how to form a group or support. And likewise, not all people know how to reach out to loners. And I want to share that it is okay to not have all the answers. Because even as professionals here on this live stream, we don't have all the answers. We know who has all the answers, but we don't have all the answers. And so my best piece of advice is, if you don't know how to reach out to a loner, reach out to someone who does know or who can. Reach out to your circle, ask for advice from your pastor or from a counselor. How do I reach out to this loner? If you know a loner, because you're right, loners are loners for a reason, and they don't really, some don't have the skill set, and some just don't want to be in a circle of people. But those are the ones that we definitely need to be reaching out to and giving extra love. I think going to children, not just death and not just COVID. I think when we hit on trauma, there's sexual trauma, there's physical trauma, there is verbal trauma. And so we need to explore the trauma with the kids, and we need to listen to our kids. Kids not only act out, but kids are very honest, and they'll tell you. And sometimes we kind of, shove what they say to the side and push it to the side, or, think that they're not making sense. But you need to listen to them, because some of us, even in this call, have had childhood traumas that we didn't even know were traumatic experiences until we got to be adults. We didn't deal with it until we became adults. And I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, because I know we only have 6 minutes left. But all that to say, we need to listen to our kids, and we need to give them avenues where they are able to express their feelings and not hold things in.
And I'm just going to add this to what you said, Dr. Nelson. When we're dealing with children and even adults, we can't put a time frame on how long it takes them to internalize or process or grieve. When we're doing this, we need to create space for them to come back. Like, I think that one of the things that we have to learn isn't just the giving of grace, but the patience that's in the grace that we give, that it is not time framed, it is seasoned. Like it doesn't expire, it just gets better as it ages. And so I think that we have to start creating space that allows children and adults to come back and say, hey, you know what, Pastor Rose, I just don't know if I feel good about this. I love feeling good, okay, today, but today is ratchet. And I think I need to talk, and you need to be okay that they need to come back and talk about it. And we don't penalize them for coming back to talk about it. And I will say this, do not make the promise that you can come back to talk to me. Then when I do come back to talk to you, you penalize me by making me feel bad for coming back to talk to you because you're busy. Don't give that blank statement if you can't live it. Words that you cannot live are demonic to the person who's counting on them. Like, you should not do that. My mother would always say, don't write a check with your mouth your butt can't pay for. And my daddy would come back and cash it in and say, don't write a check that your actions can't cash. So I'm just going to say that don't write a check that your actions cannot cash. we have arrived almost to the end game. We got a few minutes left, so I'm going to do the round robin on getting us out of here, on how people can get in touch with you and can find you and can connect with you. And we'll start with you, Dr. Nelson, and tell us how to get to you, where you are, and if they want to find you on social media.
So I have a website. It is the letter L, counseling.com, the L Counseling Center.com.
All right. And if they want to follow you on social media, like Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, or something like that.
It's only my personal page. I don't have a business
page. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Put it in the chat as well.
Okay, cool beans. Reverend Hardy, talk to us. How can we find you, my dear?
They can find me on my Facebook page, Rose Hardy, and I always joke and tell people, not the Australian tattoo artist Rose Hardy. She gets all the ink.
Yes.
Rose Hardy. I'm on social media, but they can find me Restoration Temple Ministries Inc. That's a public church page where they can reach me there. And I'm not unopposed to giving out my phone number. It's 973-931-3530. And my email address is revrose8, revrose, REVROSEH @gmail.com.
Awesome sauce. Thank you, Dr. Nelson. Reverend Pitts, talk to us. How can we find you, sir?
Social media, Justin Bertrand-Pitts, Facebook and Instagram. And also through Men Incorporated, my organization. It's www.meninc.org. You can find me there. Send any emails or anything there for sure.
Cool beans. And if somebody from RTM would just drop past there, thank you, Minister Frey. You saw me coming. Thank you so much, Minister in Training Frey. She stay on it, Pastor Hardy. She stays on it. Listen, my name is Shon Stewart. I am the senior servant, Freedom Church here in Houston, Texas. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We have a website. We're on YouTube. And there it is. Thank you so much, Reverend Pitts. We are there. Dr. Nelson and Reverend Hardy and Reverend Pitts, I can't say thank you enough for sharing space with me for this hour. If you all have an idea on another topic that we should talk about for next month, please let us know. I'm endeared to my leading ladies on this call. My brother, Reverend Sellers, couldn't be with us this week. He had another call he had to be on, but I'm eternally grateful for each and every one of you. I love you. My name is Shon Stewart. You are now free to live. Until next time.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Good night, Bishop. Good night, Rev. Good night.
Are you looking for a place to worship and to serve authentically? Freedom Church is looking for volunteers to assist with the work of ministry. Areas of opportunity are praise and worship, including singers and musicians, Freedom Cares Outreach Ministry, setup and breakdown crews, as well as sound crew. If you're interested or to get more information, please sign up at www.fchouston.org. Giving at Freedom Church is easy. To give, simply visit our website and click donate, or to give by using cash, simply use the tag $Freedom Church, HOU, or by using PayPal at Freedom Church Houston. For more information on Freedom Church and any events or outreach activities, please visit our website at www.fchouston.org.